Welcome to our 5 on 5. Pleased to be joined in studio today by former state senator and now unaffiliated candidate for governor, Betsy Johnson. Thank you so much for taking the time and joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
So you were a Republican, but left the party to join Democrats, reportedly over abortion rights. Is that true, and can you walk us through that decision-making process?
Sure, that's absolutely true. I came up in a very Republican family in Central Oregon. My father served in the legislature as a moderate Republican representing Deschutes, Jefferson, and Crook counties. So when I registered, it wasn't how did you register, it was did you register. My husband and I were involved in Republican politics in Columbia County. And at some point in time, I don't exactly remember when the issue of choice came to the fore. And I am pro-choice. I believe a woman should make the choice to bear arms and bear children. And as a result, the fit just wasn't the fit anymore, and I left. And I became a very moderate, pro-business Democrat and have proudly served in that mindset for the last almost 2 decades.
And you were 4 months ago. How did you end up running for governor as an unaffiliated candidate?
Well, the parties as they are constructed right now are part of the problem. And the obscene partisanship, the banging of the two parties against each other is not accomplishing anything for Oregon. We are moving forward divided, partisan, and with a poor track record of success. I believe that running unaffiliated, answerable only to the people of Oregon, is the right way to try to force the two parties to work together and achieve that place of compromise and collaboration that we all talk about. And so it is with that mindset that I will be appealing to Oregonians to put my name on the November ballot through the power of their signatures. And I will then act as their governor, answerable only to the people of the state of Oregon.
To win this thing, you need moderate and at least some progressive Democrats in Portland to back you. You also have friends in the timber world, people who resist climate science. How do you win the progressives? How do you reassure them, rather, that you aren't going to leave them for your friends who are skeptical of climate change?
Well, you've pointed just on climate change. Let me redirect the question and say that I think we're in a unique time in Oregon where urban and rural have become disappointed in their leadership and their government. And we are at a time where there are enough disaffected R's, disaffected D's, and then, of course, that huge group of unaffiliated voters that now represent about 40% of the registered voters in Oregon, that there are enough coming from those three areas that I can garner sufficient support to go right up the middle. When I'm in my own office, I answer my own phone. I'm hearing from as many disaffected R's as I am disaffected D's. We're all concerned about the climate, so I don't want this to hinge just on your question about climate change. But I'll tell you, as long as the two parties continue to push extreme agendas on both sides without compromise, we're not going to get anywhere. And therein lies the whole thesis about my campaign. We have got to bring Oregonians together to solve our most pressing problems. We cannot continue to be stuck in this partisan death spiral.
You've said Oregon can't succeed if Portland fails. Right now, Portland is failing. How would Governor Betsy Johnson fix Portland?
Well, first of all, exercise the bully pulpit of the governor. I am not burdened by Portland politeness, and I would certainly call out the problem for what it is. When I was a little kid growing up in Redmond, we'd come over to Portland, and it was like coming to a magical place. Now, I wouldn't let a child walk on the streets in Portland. And I think it's time to call out county leadership, city leadership, the DA, and say you've got to take responsibility for fixing this. We've got to explore every avenue to get people out of tents on the streets and get them to the hope of shelter, safe shelter. So using the governor's bully pulpit. I've also been involved with a group of people that have reanimated what was the Wapato jail. This was a $65 million facility built as a prison, never occupied one night by one inmate. And we have now completely repurposed the building, and we are taking in people that need emergency shelter and then giving them the opportunity, once they're stabilized, to decide whether or not they want to receive an entire menu of services and try to help them deal with whatever the underlying cause is: addiction, mental health, poverty, domestic violence, whatever it is, as the manager of that facility says, you cannot put sick people into housing and expect a different result if it's just shelter. We want to treat the whole person and have the person there take accountability for their own recovery. That model is working very successfully now, and I'd like to see that replicated in many parts of Portland. We've got 150,000 square feet. We're authorized for many more beds than we have people in the facility, and we want to keep growing the population there that are working towards their own recovery.
Okay, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll have much more in just a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back to our 5 on 5. We're here with former state senator and now unaffiliated candidate for governor, Betsy Johnson. You are from rural Oregon and you have a timber background. What would you do as governor to prevent disastrous fire seasons that leave many of us smoked in seemingly every summer?
Well, thank you for asking that question. It's terribly important. I don't know, but I believe that I was the first woman in the United States to be certified to carry water under a helicopter. I do remember that the FAA inspector that was supposed to check me off on doing that wouldn't fly with a girl, so they had to bring a check pilot up from California. I packed a house twice for fire. I've worked on fires when I was in the helicopter business. I've grown up in and around the woods. I think that we have a bad partner in the federal government as far as their stewardship of the public land that they have it within their jurisdiction. I think Oregon has a well-deserved reputation for initial attack when we get fires put out when they're small. The feds don't approach fires that way. I would insist that we get a robust initial attack and that we figure out a more comprehensive solution to getting the right assets in the right place at the right time, whether it's structural firefighters when you suffered so dramatically down here with those horrific fires in Talent and Phoenix versus wildland fires, who has the jurisdiction. But it all goes back, I believe, to forest management. We have got to do better in taking care of our forests, and for me that includes thinning, cleaning, pruning forests, and then charging our Department with Forestry to understand that one of their principal responsibilities is dealing with conflagration. We've got to have the right assets, including the right air assets, the right ground assets. We have to have a well-managed department that has a board that backs up the fact that one of forestry's principal obligations for all the years that it's been around is dealing with conflagration. But it all goes back basically to forest management, and I don't think we're doing a good job.
Only once have Oregonians elected an independent governor. It's been nearly 100 years since that happened. How would you buck this trend?
Well, I wear on my jacket a pin that my husband bought me on the internet. It is a pin for Julius Meyer when he ran for governor in 1930. He was elected governor as a non-affiliated. He got more votes than the Democrat and the Republican put together. He is the uncle of a beloved, iconic Oregonian, Jerry Frank. And when I have gone to see Jerry, I tell him that I've got my Uncle Julius button on, and he has said to me, if Uncle Julius can do it, so can you, and I certainly intend to.
I understand you visited Asante's new cancer center today. What did you think of the facility?
It was dazzling. I mean dazzling. We visited the new pavilion and went on many of the floors, saw the new pediatric NICU, we saw the cardiac area. We were joined by the CEO, one of the doctors who's been dealing so heavily with COVID, one of the nurse administrators. I want to be a governor that knows that there is Oregon south of Eugene and east of Bend. And I think the overwhelming message that I came away with is that this is a generous community that has stepped up to build a $1 billion facility that takes care of a huge geographic area. And you will be doing it in a state-of-the-art facility with state-of-the-art practitioners. And the community is full partners in building this really miraculous facility. We toured the new pavilion and then went over to the cancer center and talked with some of the folks there. I am frankly blown away by the community investment and the level of enthusiasm about building out the Asante Forward program. I applaud the community for their engagement.
I have just one last question. I'm confident that if you were elected, you'd be the first Oregonian governor to also have been a licensed helicopter pilot, as you referenced earlier. What's more nerve-wracking, running for governor and dealing with people like me, or flying a helicopter around Mount St. Helens?
I got to tell you, for 10 years, I flew in an active volcano. My company was the prime contractor to the U.S. Geological Survey on Mount St. Helens. I've landed in the crater. I've flown around the back of the lava dome. One of our pilots was Life magazine's picture of the decade when he landed on the lava dome. I couldn't do that because I had a problem with my back, a big yellow stripe right up the middle. But I'll tell you, I'd tangle with an active volcano 9 days out of 10 rather than be here talking to you.
I'm sorry you have that stripe on your back. I hope you get it fixed.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We do enjoy the time.
Thank you. I've actually enjoyed this very much. Thank you.
All right. Stay with us. We'll be right back.